Welcome in. Thanks for tuning in to the 2024 first episode of the new year of the Co-Lin Coaches Show. This will be a basketball edition. That's all we've got going on right now on campus, so that's what we're going to talk about. And joining me now is our head men's coach, Coach David Sanders. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here.
And Coach, obviously we're going to talk about the last couple of weeks. We missed last week doing the Coaches Show because of all the ice storm and had a little bit of an illness that we were dealing with and those kind of things. But we're back at it. We're going to talk about the last couple of weeks. We'll start back all the way back on January 11th. You went on the road. Team's been a little bit of road warriors here to start the year. First three back were all on the road, but the first one was at Northwest. That's a long trip to have to take, but you end up taking that one 87-60 back on January 11th. Talk about that game and how you feel about the guys played.
Well, I thought the guys did a great job of being prepared, traveling well, staying focused, and went down there and had a hard-fought game. Guys stepped up and made a lot of plays, and I thought we really band together on the road and picked up a really big road win.
Yeah, I think what'll be lost in that is if you weren't watching it, you won't know. Unless you watch the show, early on, the guys were down 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2 or 3 possessions you looked up and you hadn't scored yet, hadn't really played well. I saw you call timeout, and I would imagine you kind of had to get into them a little bit and say, hey, wake up, we got to go. This is a team we got to beat. But they turned it around. You end up leading 47-34 after the first half, and then you outscored them 40-26 in the second half to really take it. It really kind of felt like, especially in that second half, once the defense started working and you turned your defense into offense, that really made the big difference for you.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, played really well in transition, and I thought our two guards, Devin and Court, really got out and made plays for themselves and others, and they kind of, make us go, and they were able to get some guys some open looks, some finishes around the rim. So, I think that kind of led to us jumping out to a big league. And
you had 4 players in double-digit scoring, 2 of them we just mentioned. But Devin Carter not only led your team, but led all scorers, number 4. He's had a big year for you, but he had 19 in this one. And it really feels like when he's scoring, that's really when this team is at their best.
Yeah, I still don't think Devin scratched the surface on how well he can actually play. He's not really shot the ball well, but what he has done really well lately, he's been a really good floor general. He's finding his teammates, getting to the basket, and anytime we can get him to the free throw line, he's an 85-90% shooter. So that's something that always helps him get above that 20 mark. So we try to make sure that we get in that bonus that he's attacking. So.
Another guy who came from a little bit different position than what he's normally do, Emmanuel James. He came off the bench for this one for you. I know he had been dealing with a little bit of illness coming back from the break and those kind of things, so you brought him off the bench, but he had a huge game for you. Came off the bench with a double-double, 17 points, 10 rebounds, and just like Devin and Court, another one we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, it really feels like E-Man is kind of that post player who really makes things run for you as well.
No doubt, man. E-Man is he's a post player in the guard's body, and he does a lot. He had a block in that game where he went up and just skied and got the block. And as soon as he blocked it, the ref called foul, and the ref came and told him, he said, I missed that one, Coach. I am not going to lie to you. So he can kind of shock you with the things he can do on the court athletically, and he just so fast, man, so athletic, so agile. That it's hard for other bigs to keep up with him. So, he's a guy that we're glad we have on our team.
Another guy who had another big game for you, Yvonne Johnson. He also had a double-double. So not only do you have 4 guys in double-digit scoring, you get 2 guys that have double-doubles. And anytime you're getting a double-double from E-Man, it's going to be a great day. But when you're getting 2 double-doubles, and especially from a guy like Yvonne, when he's getting 13 points and 13 rebounds, those plays are huge for you. But talk about Yvonne and his play. He's one of the 2 sophomores you have on this team. And just talk about how essential his play has been.
Yeah, Vaughn has quietly been, our best rebounder. You know what I mean? Him and E-Man and kind of battle game for game with that, and I think Ishmael have a little bit to say about that now. But I challenge those guys to go rebound, especially on the defensive end, because I feel like we can hold teams to one shot, and make them take a long shot and rebound it. I think it makes our chances to win better. So he's one that's kind of took that challenge, and something about rebounding just sometimes leads to points, and he's always around that double mark, and we're definitely glad to have him. I know he's a one-year kid. I think he's going to do great on that when he gets back on the next level. And
then the other guy who's in double-digit for you is your point guard, Corterius Scott. Corterius is a kid that we talk about all the time. Like, he gets upset when he doesn't have double-digit assists, but he's always flirting with about 16 to 20 points every game. It feels like he's in that mark between 15 and 20, 16 to 20. He had 16 in this one for you, and I think he had a little bit of a low end on the assist, maybe 4 or something like that. But Court really feels like you talk about him all the time. You say he's your floor general. He's one of the two that you have because if he's not doing well, Devin usually can step up in that role for you. But talk about Court and how essential his play has been.
Well, I think I'm kind of starting to see a shift with Devin in Court. Devin is becoming more of a playmaker, and Court's become more of a scorer, which is kind of, for them is good because it shows their versatility. And we're asking Court to score more because he's so good at it. He's great. His percentages are great, and he's definitely a matchup problem for any point guard in the league. And so he's definitely been one of those that we kind of count on, and we try to keep him out of foul trouble because he's so vital to what we do, and we just love having him on the floor.
So you get that win, and then you turn around, you go back on the road. You go 2 days later, January 13th, you go over to Utica, you play Hines, and you win this one 93-88, and the game was a 5-point margin, but it really felt like it was like a 1-point game for most of that game. Talk about that one and just how you felt like the team responded on such a quick turnaround.
I think it was just kind of a preview of conference. What you get in conference. There's no easy wins. Hines got a really solid team, and they came out with the mindset to win. We jumped out on them early, and they fought back, and I think them fighting back in the game gave them the confidence they needed to really, really scrap all game. And so I knew it was going to be one of those type of games. And for us to be able to pull that win out, I was very proud of my team. I think they grew up, they matured in that game. Dakota Hill, you gave some great minutes, and I thought we really made some plays down the stretch to kind of separate ourselves, which those kind of games you need. Of course, you want to win every game by as many points as you can, but those games get you prepared more so for the Gulf Coast type games where you're going to be on the road and you never know if you're going to be shooting it well. And you got to find a way to win.
All right, this game, I put my notes here, back and forth for the whole first half, really the whole game. First half, you come out on top, you got a 42-41 lead, but you watch the first 4 or 5 minutes of the second half, and Hines built up, I think it was about a 10-point lead, so your guys were in a big hole, and you had to fight your way back, and I thought it was really impressive to watch and really see the guys really just determine we're going to find a way to win this one. Doesn't matter how. Doesn't matter if it's about 1 point. We're going to find a way to get this ugly win. And you outscored 51-47 to take that one. Devin, again, another huge game. Tied his career high, led all scorers with 33 points and had 7 rebounds. Again, I don't think you can talk. Even though I think if you looked at it, he was like 10 of 28 from the field or something like that. So the shooting percentage isn't where you want to be at, but 33 points is 33 points.
Yeah, definitely. I thought Devin made some really big plays for us down the stretch, some individual plays that not a lot of guys can make. And, he kind of put us on his shoulders late offensively, and that's what we look for him to do. Sometimes when things are not working out and the team has really good defensive game plan, you got to have a guy that can go get a bucket. And he's definitely that. And I thought he really took that challenge and stepped up and made it. That 4-point play was huge. And he just made some plays that not a lot of guys can make.
He also had Court had 19 points and 7 assists, and E-Man had another double-double, 19 points and 11 rebounds. I know I talked to the Hines SID, and he told me, he said 4 and 12 are very impressive, and that being Devin and E-Man. So, that they're impressing not only people here at Co-Lin, but they're impressing people around the league. We'll go to the last game before this show. This past Thursday, you had your MACCC conference opener. You go on the road again, a familiar theme here, and you play Gulf Coast, and that's a tough place to have to go for your conference opener, but you come out with a hard, gritty, tough win where the team showed a lot of determination. You picked that one up 75-71. Talk about that one. Before the show we were talking a little bit, and you said probably wasn't the guy's best effort, but felt good to find a win no matter what.
Yeah, I think the mark of a great team is when you can go on the road against a really good team and pick up a win when you don't play to your best. And I thought that's kind of what happened. We didn't shoot it well. We turned the ball over 19 times, and it was just, a situation where, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how we got out of it with the win. Because Gulf Coast, in my mind, is a top half team in the league, and they're really tough to beat at home. A new arena, and the crowd was rowdy. And I thought the guys just kind of weathered the storm. We made some really boneheaded plays in this game. I think Emmanuel did something I never seen him do, was miss a wide open dunk. And, but we had to fight through that adversity, and I thought we did a really good job. Cortez Scott was in foul trouble the whole game, and I thought Devin really stepped up and took that role, and even Will Grayson gave us some great minutes when Court was out. So but the key to the game was Ishmael Rashid. He just owned the glass on both ends. I thought he really, really took the challenge. we've been on him about rebounding the ball because he's a really great rebounder, and I think he just took over the game on the glass. So.
And you go back and look at this one, and you have a lead after half, 38-33. But again, as we talked about, it just felt like Gulf Coast wasn't going to back down. You saw, I think in the second half they really upped their full court pressure. Our guys kind of struggled a little bit with that. Those kind of things. But again, found a way to win it despite the fact that Gulf Coast outscored you 38-37 in the second half. You still come away with that 4-point win. As you mentioned, Court was in foul trouble, but you still had 4 players in double-digit scoring. He was one of them. He actually led the team with 16 points despite that foul trouble. So, I think it's you got to feel good as a coach knowing that one of your best players probably had his worst game to date, but still found a way to lead the team and be a leader.
Yeah, I think you're going to have those type of situations, and that's why it's good to have multiple guys that can step up and make plays for you. And I also thought when Court was out, we kind of used Dakota Hilliard some, and he had, I think it was 6 rebounds in 8 minutes, and that was huge for us. He went and controlled the defensive glass, kind of gave Ishmael a break, and just having guys that can step up and make plays, that's what basketball is all about, because every night it's not going to be the same guys. You got to be able to be ready when your number's called. And I thought we had some guys really play well.
Right. Your other guys in double digits, you had Vaughn with 15 points and 5 rebounds, and I believe Devin Carter had 15 or 14 points as well too. So not a night where he had his best stuff, but was still able to contribute. Again, we talk about him every game, but E-Man, another double-double, and that's a theme here. That's 3 for the past 3 games. That's 4 straight, and he's got 10 double-doubles in 13 games played. You want to talk about somebody who's making a difference, who's just a freshman. I don't know that there's another freshman in the country who can say in 13 games played he's got 10 double-doubles. He's just a really good athlete.
He's an amazing athlete. His motor is unbelievable. He rebounds out of his area. He's always there to get a tip in. And I just think he really takes it personal. He takes it to heart as far as making those plays for his team. And he didn't, of course, by his own admission, didn't have a great game. But you look up, kind of remind me of Dylan Canterville. Like, you look up on the stat sheet and somehow he got a double-double. So that's good company to be in from the reigning player of the year in the conference. So hopefully, E-Man continues to stay healthy and continue to take that challenge because he's really a tough matchup for anybody.
And 14 points and 11 rebounds in that one. And a kid that you mentioned just a second ago, Ishmael Rashid, narrowly missed a double-double. He had 9 points. But again, you talked about it. Where he was the biggest, and it's something that you've talked with him all season, is on the boards. 15 rebounds is what they had him for. It may have been even as high as 17. We've got to go back and look at the stat sheets to make sure. But either way, 15 rebounds, that's a career high for him. That's a lot of crashing the boards, and that's a lot of second chance opportunities and just making a difference for your team.
Yeah, that's how you get that's how you get a really big road win. You got to control the glass if you're not going to make shots, and you're going to struggle turn the ball over. My biggest issue and my biggest pet peeve is rebounding. I think it is the essential key to winning basketball games. Giving guys one shot and out, and then going on the other end and giving your team extra possessions. I think it's just, I thought Dennis Rodman was huge for the Bulls in that second three-peat because he gave Michael Jordan extra shots, and that's just something you shouldn't do. You know what I mean? He was just dedicated to getting offensive rebounds, and it made a really good team, an elite team. And I think that that's one of the things that I try to harp to my guys. I want my guards to try to get 5 rebounds a game, and I want my bigs to, to be fighting over double-doubles. And I think they've been doing a good job of it with Vaughn, Dakota, E-Man, and Ishmael. They all go out there and they all try to challenge each other to get double-doubles, and I think it's really been paying off for them.
Another kid that I want to talk about, we don't get to talk about him a whole lot because, there's not a lot of time that he gets on the court, but he always makes great use of his minutes, in my opinion, Will Grayson. It always feels like, if Court or Devin or, somebody just needs to spell. Will's kind of like one of those first people you turn to. And, it seems like he's always coming up with a huge steal. I think in the Hines game I was watching, and he had 2 steals that were just like, man, those just feel like monumental plays right now. And even in the Gulf Coast game, he had one. I looked up and I was like, who is that got that poked that ball away? And it was Will. And I was like, that's just an amazing play. Just amazing court vision from him to be able to get his finger in there, get a hand in there real quick, and be able to steal the ball and turn that defense into offense for you.
Yeah, I think Will has done an amazing job being ready to play when his number's called. And I thought that game, those plays he made in the Hines game were really key because he got a steal on one end and he came down and hit a 3-pointer on the other one. And it's just big plays. He's not a guy that's afraid of the moment. He comes from great pedigree with playing for Coach Carlisle, who's a 7-8-time championship winner, and that's a guy that really knows how to win, knows what it takes. He takes charges. He handles the ball well. He's not scared to jump up and make a shot. I think Gus Kofi's went in there, got a couple layups for us. So, he's a guy that really comes in and kind of sticks a dagger in the other team because you're not expecting that from a guy that comes off the bench, but he plays like a starter, and he's earning more and more minutes.
And, Coach, obviously you've got 2 big games coming up this week. Everything from here on out is conference play. It all matters from here on out. Not saying the ones before this didn't, but these are the ones that are the most important ones from here on out. You start off on Monday. You'll host a team that you're very familiar with. You played them 11 days ago. This time you get to host them, though, and that's the Rangers of Northwest. What are you expecting out of that bunch?
I think that it's going to be a really hard-fought game. I think there's a team coming on the road. They have nothing to lose, in conference play now, and I think we cannot take it for granted. This is a game that's kind of kept me up last night because I know that's a really good team, and I know they're going to come in here trying to win. They're not coming in here laying down and say, hey, Co-Lin, here you go. So we got to really be prepared to play, and sometimes it's, I always found when I was playing that it's easier to kind of focus on the road. At home, you got a lot of distractions. You got family want tickets. You got all this going on, and you kind of got to get your focus, back on the actual basketball game. And so hopefully, we can keep these guys focused today and come out and get this win. I don't care if it's by 1 or 100. We just got to get the win and move on to the next one.
And then on Thursday, we'll go right down the road about 30 minutes, head on over to Summit and play the Bears from Southwest. And, I know I've talked to you outside of the show and just talking back and forth. Southwest is a team that, you kind of scratch your head a little bit. They beat Jones early on, and then they lost to Delgado about a week or so ago by 2. But what are you expecting out of the Bears in that tough matchup? And it'll be tougher going to their place.
Well, you can throw all that out the window in the rivalry game. So, and it's been a tough place. I think my first year we went to Southwest and we were up 20 and ended up losing by about 15. So, it's just one of those kind of rivalries where, they're going to get up to play Co-Lin, and we know we got to go over there with our A game. I know they've been dealing with some injuries. Mark Jones, one of the best players, has kind of been in and out the lineup. And so anytime you lose your best player, you're going to struggle some. So, but we don't know if he'll be playing or not. We're going to prepare like he's playing, but he's definitely an all-league player and somebody that, makes a really big difference for them. So, we're looking forward to the matchup, and we got to go over there and take our A game.
All right, well, we're looking forward to it, Coach. Again, thanks for joining me. Again, if you missed those, the Wolves have 2 coming up this week. The first one will be at home on Monday, January 22nd against the Rangers, and then we'll be at Summit to face off against the Bears of Southwest on Thursday, January 25th. Tip-off for both of those is scheduled for 7:30, but just for people's reference, it'll be about 15 minutes after the end of the girls' game as the schedules will go back to what they were back a few years ago. We'll play both men's and women's in the same place this year from here on out in conference play. Stick with us through the break. Joining me next will be head women's coach Dr. Britta Stephens. We'll talk about all the Lady Wolves games from the past couple of weeks and the 2 that they have coming up against the Lady Rangers and Lady Bears. Thanks for sticking with us through the break. Joining me now is our head women's basketball coach, Dr. Britta Stephens. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
And Coach, obviously, as we talked with Coach Sanders, it's been a couple of weeks since we were here. Been a few weeks since we were here at the studio, but been a couple of weeks since everything's been played. You've played about 4 since then. We'll go back and talk about all of them. We'll go all the way back to January 9th. That seems like so long ago, almost 2 weeks ago at this point. You opened up the second half of the year with a home game against Baton Rouge, and you got a big win, 60-55 over the Lady Bears. Talk about how your girls played. I think it probably felt good seeing a strong display after basically about a month off, after dropping 1 to Holmes to end the first half of the year, and then you get about a month off, but then you come out and have such a strong display. Talk about how the girls played.
Yeah, now I've got to go way back in the memory bank. We've played a lot of games since we played BRCC. What we do in community college basketball is crazy. We play, we'll play 8 or 10 games, then we take a month off, and then we come back. So it's a little bit crazy, but we were excited to get back. We had about a week and a half of practice, and then we played. Once we start playing, I don't really like to practice. Let's play. Let's get rolling. So that first week back, we had 3 games, and it ended up being 3 games in 6 days because of the weather pushed one back and everything. So we were excited to finally get back on the court against Baton Rouge. We'd gone down there earlier in the year and beaten them, so that was one we felt like we should win at home. And I thought we came out and played pretty well for it being the first game in basically a month. again, we were probably a little flat to start with. I'm having to go back and really remember how well we played. It was a tight game all through, but I thought defensively, we did a lot of things. We changed it up. We played a lot of zone, mixed it up. In the end, we had to play a lot of man to end up beating them. Sierra Myers was really good that game. I remember her she had a double-double. She was really good, and that was something we needed from her because prior to the break, she had hurt her ankle. She had a couple of really good games, and she got hurt again. She had not played well, and so she's a player that we have to have come on strong, especially in conference play. So for her to come out in that opening game and have some confidence and play really well, that was a big thing for me. Jamia Smith, I remember her playing really well in that game, and I don't know that the stat sheet always shows what she does. She guards, she rebounds, she does a lot of big things for us. One of their best players was their post player, and she came out and really did a good job for us in that game.
You go back and you look at everything. You led 18-13 after the first, 33-29 at halftime, 50-41 after the third, and the fourth quarter is kind of where they had their big quarter. You were outscored 14-10, but you held on for the win. And you don't want to say held on as it was something bad, but at the end of the game, it probably kind of looked like it was the first game back. Girls playing with some heavy legs at that point. But Sierra Myers did have a double-double, 13 points, 10 rebounds. Kirsten Haynes, a player that, we don't talk about her scoring a lot because there's not a lot of times that she'll score, she gets 5 to 6 and those kind of things, but those 5 to 6 are huge. But she had 12 points in this one. And I know talking to you after the game, I said, that's probably the best game we've seen Kirsten play at home the whole season.
Yeah, and Kirsten Haynes, again, much like Jamia Smith, is probably a kid, Kayla Howard. Those kids don't get all the credit because they don't score all the points. She comes in and she handles the ball, and she has a big job. Defensively, she has a big job to do. And so it's nice to see those kids who have really put in the work and who are really unselfish have a game where they get to score 12 points. Something Coach Holt and I have talked about that we've got to improve on as a team is we have not done a good job of finishing games. We're getting outscored in the fourth quarter there. When we went to BRCC, we got outscored in the fourth quarter. We'll get a big lead in the third, and it's almost like, okay, the game's over. And it's like, no, there's still a lot of game left. It's college basketball, and a 10-point lead is nothing. And so that's something we've talked about, that we've really got to do a better job of finishing out games. I didn't think we did a good job of finishing out the Holmes game right before Christmas. Obviously, it had to go into overtime, and we ended up getting beat. I think if we're a little bit better finishers, we win that game. The Hines game, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, we didn't finish that game. We led the entire game, and then it was like in the last 2 minutes, we just kind of lost our momentum. And again, was it heavy legs, 3 games in 6 days? I don't know, but that's something moving forward in conference play we've got to get better at, because our conference is good and we're going to be in a lot of tight games. We've got to be smart. Shot selection, that's something we've talked about. There's a difference in taking a 3 in transition when there's 4 minutes in the first quarter versus 3 minutes in the fourth quarter. So those are things that we've talked about. And our team is growing, and we're getting better, and we're learning that, but we've got to continue to improve with that.
Jamia Smith also had 12 points in this one as well, too. But then you go, and a couple of days later, you go on the road. You go up to Northwest, and you get a road win. And this is one you want to circle this one big because, talking to you after the game and before the show and all this kind of stuff, this is one you felt like you kind of stole it a little bit because you didn't necessarily play your best game, but you still got a road win 69-63 against the Lady Rangers. Talk about how you felt like your team played, again, probably not their best game, but you still got a win. And at this point in the year, a win's a win. It don't matter if it's an ugly win or a pretty win, you'll still take the win.
Yeah, we'll take any kind of win we can get any way we can get it. Going into the Northwest game, I knew that one was going to be difficult. First of all, we were supposed to play BRCC on Monday. It got pushed to Tuesday for the weather. So now instead of having 2 days to prep for Northwest, we only had one, which Coach Holt and I, when we knew the game was going to get changed, we started looking ahead and kind of doing our prep. Obviously, we don't tell the kids that. But anytime you've got to get on a bus and go 4 hours and try to win, it was our first road trip with the men. It was we were out of school, so we left early. There's just a lot of things that it was like, all right, all these factors could weigh into how we play and are we going to play well. And even that morning we shot around and it was not very good. And I got on the bus and I told Coach, I said, I'm afraid we're in trouble, But when we got to Northwest, our focus was good, our warm-up was good, and we came out. The pace in the first quarter of the game, at one point I looked at Kayla Howard and I was like, you have got to slow this game down. It was like a track meet, the first half. Especially the first quarter, but specifically the first half. And when you go back and look at the stat sheet, when I went back and looked at the stat sheet says we shouldn't have won that game. We got out-rebounded. We turned it over more times than they did. But one thing that I thought was really good, the assist, if you look at the assist line, we had more assists than they did because we shared the ball. We played very unselfishly, and we just never gave up. We just kept every time we would turn it over, every time we would make a mistake, we just kept going back and we kept fighting and we kept fighting. And somehow they stayed together, the kids stayed together, and they found a way to win.
Watching this one, sitting at home watching this one, didn't get to go to this one with you. Watching it on the Northwest stream, it was just kind of like, whoa. Slow down for a second, please. I can't keep up with the ball. But you led 17-14 after the first quarter, a very frenetic first quarter. And then Northwest kind of turned it around on you, and they outscored you 17-8 in the second quarter to take a 31-25 lead at halftime. And then y'all outscored, or Lady Wolves outscored Lady Rangers 23-21 in the third quarter, but you're still trailing 52-48. And then the fourth quarter is really what made the difference. I think, you talked about not always being the best finishing. This is a game where you finished really well. You outscored the Lady Rangers 21-11 to win the game, 69-63. So anytime you see something like that happen, that's a game. Again, you circle it, you go to that fourth quarter, and you go, we've got to have more fourth quarters like this. Yeah. This is how we're going to win games and finish games.
Yeah, and I read your article this morning. I had to go back and review some of the stats because it has been a long time. We scored 44 points in the second half of the game. So that's a lot of points in the second half of the game, especially for the first half to have been so frantic. You would have thought that it was, you had scored more points there. But every time we would get down, every time we would get to 6, and I was like, okay. And I told Coach Holt, I was like, if it gets to 8, we got to call timeout, just to manage the game, just to keep us. But I never had to. Every time they would take a lead, and then we would chip into it, and they would take a lead, and they led for almost the entire game. But when it mattered down the stretch, we were able to finish. One thing I was proud of is late in the game, I think it was like a 3 or 4 point game, and we went small. We substituted Sequoia Bolden in at the 4, and we went small, and we switched everything on the side. And that's not something, we've practiced it. It's not something we practice every day, but it's something that we talked about, and it's something that for us to be successful, we need to be able to do with smaller lineups, and we did that on a side out, and we were very successful with that. So I was proud of that. That's part of that finishing. That's part of that growth and learning to finish, and they did a really good job of that. I thought that our team in this game, one of the keys for us was don't foul. Don't create opportunities for them by fouling them, and we did an excellent job of that too. One thing that I was very disappointed in that game, I think we were 50% from the free throw line. At halftime, we were 10 for 20. I think we shot 39 free throws in the game, which is a substantial amount of free throws for a women's college basketball game. So Northwest was very foul prone, and then we didn't capitalize on that. Had we made 50%, had we made 75% of our free throws, it's not a 2-point game, it's a 10-point game. So that's something we need to be better at.
I think I maybe talking to the Northwest SID about that one, I think when it was done, I looked at him and I said, man, I feel sorry. I think it was something like 78 free throw attempts in that game between the two teams. And, I was, again, sitting at home watching, I was going, man, there's been a lot of free throws in this one. And you get the stat sheet back from them and you look at it and you go, oh, yeah, there were a lot of free throw attempts in that one. But you talk about the leading scorers. We're going to talk about a player that we haven't got to talk about yet because this was only her second game, but she led you in scoring, and that's Cookie Wilkinson. Cookie, a Brookhaven native. You love to see her here finally getting to play for the Lady Wolves. She had 16 points and 6 rebounds, and in the game before that against the Lady Bears, she had 8 points. And she came off the bench in both of these, and I felt like you could kind of tell like. In the first game, it was kind of like, all right, let me knock the rust off. And in this one, it kind of felt like, all right, this is who I am kind of thing.
Yeah, she had a really good game that night. And I'll be honest, in the Northwest game, when the game was over with, it was such a frantic pace. When the game was over with, I looked at Coach and I said, who scored and how did we win the game? Because it was such a blur. It was just everything was so quick. I didn't know she had 16 points. Kayla Howard had 14 points. I had no idea those kids had scored. I had no idea who had scored the game. I think Sierra Myers played really well in that game. But they were all so unselfish with the ball. It was, let me get it to whoever's open and let's make the basket. So I had no idea who scored. But yes, the first game, and that's something we've got to remember with Cookie Wilkinson, is our other kids, everybody else on our team has played 8 or 10 games. They had these tune-up games, and especially for a freshman, they had these 8 or 10 games to adjust to college basketball. She transferred in late and could not play with us until January, so the BRCC game was her very first college game, and that's something even I have to take a step back and go, Coach, this is her first college game. These are her first college games. So she's still adjusting to the pace of the game. The game is different. Shot selection is different. Running things is different. The way you play is a little different. So she's still having to adjust to that. So I thought in the BRCC game, knocking the rust off is a good way to put it. She didn't have a great game. She didn't have a terrible game. But coming into the Northwest game, she had a much better game. She looked like she was much more comfortable with her teammates and those kinds of things. And then moving forward, in the Hines game, I didn't think she had as good of a game. I thought she pressed and was trying to, and that happens to all of us. So you press and you try to do too much, and especially late in the game, I want to create for my team. But again, those things will come. The more she plays with us, the more we play together. And that's something too. She's been in practice with us every day. But game situations are so different. They're just so different, and it's hard to practice. When you have 12 players, it's really hard to practice. I need these 5 to play together. I need these 5 to play together. And then you look up at the end of the game and you've got a group of 5 and you go, well, those have never really practiced together because we needed them to be on opposite teams. So that's why the game experience is just so invaluable for us.
Talked about Kayla Howard. She had 14 points. And again, a player that we don't always talk about her scoring because maybe she averages about 8 or something like that. The averages will be up there on the screen for everybody to see. But, it seems like she's really, again, one of your leaders. She's your emotional leader, but she also does a good job of being your floor general a lot of times. And anytime you see her get 14 points, it feels great because she really had a really great game that game.
Right. And she's a kid who, when I took the job, I was like, all right, who's going to be my point guard? I don't know. And even 2 or 3 weeks into practice, I was like, I think Kayla can do it. And she has really embraced that role. And we've talked about this before. I'll see her looking at me on the bench going, this is not what you want. I'm like, no, that's not what I want. Like, go get the ball and run the team. And she has really embraced that it's my team and I'm going to run it. And like I said, in the Northwest game, I looked at her and I said, Kayla, you got to get the ball and you got to slow the game down. It's just the pace is just too frantic. I want to play fast, but we were turning it over, especially early. We turned it over a lot. And I was like, we need to settle down, and so she's done a really good job with that. Her being able to score 14 points, that's when you've played well because your floor general is scoring 14 points instead of having to distribute the ball and things like that. So she had a really good game for us. I was really, really pleased with her.
Sierra Myers with another solid game, had 12 points and I think about 4 or 5 rebounds in that one. We'll go on to the next game. You play another one 2 days later, and this is the one we talked about. This is another one of those that when you look back at the end of the year, you're going to circle this one and go, this one got away from us. Yeah. You go to Hines, and this one, you look at again, circle the fourth quarter. They go, this is the kind of fourth quarter we want to avoid, especially kind of those last couple of minutes like you talked about. You lose this one 66-61. Again, a game where it kind of felt like you were very frantic at the start of it. But talk about how you feel about how the girls played a fairly good game despite kind of stumbling at the end.
Yeah, and that's a game that I was disappointed in. I mean, I felt like that was one that we should have gone to Hines and won. Talent-wise, we're very evenly matched. They're a lot better. You looked at the schedule and you put a star by Hines and everybody said, okay, we're fixing to win. They're a much improved team. But it's a game we should have gone and won. We led the entire game, and we just couldn't pull it out at the end. Playing 3 games in 6 days, did that contribute to it? Probably, maybe. We came out very flat. We win the tip. Ashanti Fleming has a 4-foot jumper and we miss it. And I'm like, okay, we can't miss those. And we missed so many layups. Even down the stretch when I went back and watched it in the fourth quarter, Jamia Smith's got layups, Sierra Myers has got layups, Cookie Wilkins has got layups. They've got layups to tie the game or to put us ahead or to extend the lead, and we just missed them. And so with some of that fatigue, yes, with some of it focus, some of it frustration, I think so, because we had led the whole game. I didn't think we played terrible, but I didn't think we played great. I thought in the Northwest game, I told you I had no idea who scored because we were so unselfish. In this Hines game, it wasn't the same team. Especially early in the game, I felt like we were a little more worried about, am I going to get my shot? Am I going to get my points? And that was something we talked about at halftime. This is not about you. This is about Co-Lin. It is not about you or you or you or you. And if you can't play for Co-Lin and do what we need you to do to win, then we're going to have to make some adjustments. And I thought they did a better job of that in the second half down the stretch. Down the stretch, we turned it over. We committed some silly fouls. That was something we talked about is we can't foul, and we fouled way too much in this game. We gave them 39. I think they shot 39 free throws. And after the game, we talked about the stats. I said, we handed them 39 points. And they were like 82% from the free throw line. So when you hand somebody 31 or 32 points, it's very, very difficult to win.
This one, you led 11-6 after the first, 25-20 at half, 40-33 in the third, and then again the fourth quarter, Hines outscores you 33-21, and that's where you get the 66-61 loss there. Again, Cookie Wilkinson led the team with 12 points. We talked about that. You felt like she pressed a little bit. One that really stood out to me was Mila Harbor, again, a freshman that, we talk about it, she'll have a game where she has double-digit points and 5 rebounds, or she'll have double-digit rebounds and 5 points and those kind of things. But it felt like a game she got you points when you needed them. It really kind of kept you in it for a lot of it.
Yeah, I felt like I was extremely disappointed in that game, and I'm still, after the Gulf Coast game, I told him, I said, y'all, if you would have played the way you played tonight against Hines, we win this game. So that game is disappointing for me, but I thought Mila Harbor was the bright spot in that game. She came off the bench and just gave us whatever. She gives us whatever we need. Sometimes we need her to score. Sometimes we need her to pass. Sometimes we need her to play defense. And she's very unselfish, and she always gives us what we need. I kind of felt bad late in that game. She had an open three, and I'm standing on the sideline about as close as I am to you. And I said, drive it. And she ends up driving it and turns it over. And she probably should have shot it. She was thinking about shooting it. So I told her after the game, I said, look, sometimes you don't have to listen to everything I say. Sometimes you have the feel, and she probably should have shot it. And again, that's us getting adjusted and getting used to each other and knowing situations and things like that. But I thought she was a really, really bright spot in this game. Actually, the next game, she had not started. In the next game when we went to Gulf Coast, we made an adjustment in our lineup and started her, and I think she's probably going to stay in that starting spot in the lineup for a while.
I think two others that had really good games against Hines. Jamia Smith had 10 points and 8 rebounds, flirted with a double-double there, and LaShanti Payne, 8 points and 8 rebounds. And, you look at both of them, they had 16 rebounds between the two of them. I think Sierra Myers had 7. You look at that, that's 23 rebounds. You look at that, and you don't want to say that this is the difference in the game, because you look at that, and I think the team had 40. You as a team had 48 rebounds. I think they had 28. Mm-hmm. And when you go when 3 of yours almost out rebound their whole team,
you're supposed to win
that game.
Absolutely.
But despite that, I think you still saw really good things from Jamia and LaShanti as well too.
Yeah, and something we've talked about is our guards have got to do a better job of rebounding when we shoot the ball, we expect it to go in. I'm glad you have confidence in your teammates, but it's an imperfect game. Things are not going to go in all the time, so we've all got to rebound except our safety. Kayla Howard is our safety, and she's got to get out, but you other 4 have got to rebound. But that's something, no matter what's happening in the game, I can always count on Jamia and LaShanti to rebound. They're always going to be in there, and they're always going to get after it. And LaShanti gets a lot of rebounds, gets a lot of cheap baskets, because she just goes in there and fights, and people don't block out, and she gets a lot of rebounds. And so those two, again, they don't always get the credit they deserve for what they do, because sometimes it doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Biddy has fought through some injuries. She, in the Gulf Coast game, and I know I'm jumping around, in the Gulf Coast game in the second half, I don't think I played her at all, because I could just tell that she was in pain. She's had some shin splints and some injuries, and I knew it was important that we protect her, because we need her down the stretch to win, the Northwest game and the Southwest game and the East Mississippi. And so the Gulf Coast game, for me, when it got the lead got a little bit extended, I said, I'm not risking it with this kid, because she's too valuable to our team. So she deserves a lot more credit than what she gets. And
we'll jump to the Gulf Coast game. This was your conference opener this past Thursday on January 18th. You go on the road, and I know a lot of people are going to look at this, and they're going to hear the statement that I'm going to say here next, and probably scratch their heads and go, Kevin's lost his mind. He's crazy. Mm-hmm. There's no way. It was an 80-51 game. But it didn't feel like an 80-51 game. There were, I talked to you the day after the game, and I was like, man, we just had so many shots that just didn't go down. You had so many just driving layups, and great looking threes and shooter and jumpers that if they go down, this game's very tight. Again, watching it, at one point I looked and I was like, we've got to be pretty close, and the score said it wasn't, but it felt like it was. So a lot of people read 80-51, but I don't know that you necessarily can read a lot into it, because you and I both talk, Gulf Coast is very good this year, and our team is continuing to grow and continuing to learn and those kind of things. But, you don't feel bad about going on the road and dropping one like this, because when you go and watch the tape, the team probably played a lot better than what the score says they did.
Yeah, when I went in the locker room after this game, I didn't have the same feeling that I had at the Hines game. Obviously, I was disappointed. I want to win every game. That's, winners want to win. That's the mentality that you're supposed to have. But when I went in the locker room, I didn't have the same feeling I did after the Hines game, because I felt like that we had played hard, and I felt like we had done just about everything we could to win the game. Defensively, in the first half, specifically the first quarter, we almost played perfectly. Everything Coach Holt and I had told him to do, asked him to do, talked to them about, it was perfect. It was executed perfectly. So for me, that level of growth, if we can take that from the Gulf Coast game to the Northwest game to the Southwest game, now we're getting somewhere, and we're growing. And we had been good defensively so far, but their guards were so much better than anybody else that we had seen. And so we talked about them about, hey, your guards are going to get beat. You posts have got to slide over and help, and we did an unbelievable job of that. So in the third quarter of this game, if you look at the stat line, it was 25-23. Mm-hmm. We matched them basket for basket in the third quarter. We kind of, in the second quarter, they got a big lead, and I think you're right. We had good shots. Early in the game, Sierra Myers had open shots, and she just couldn't make them. We just couldn't make the shots. And then in the second half, when we came back out, Sierra Myers has those same really open shots, and she makes it. one thing that stood out to me early in the game is we turned it over a lot, and turnovers against a really good team, and they are a really good team. Turnovers against a really good team usually equals offense for them. So I would imagine that a lot of their points in the first half came off of our turnovers, and that was an area that we needed to fix. And again, coaching, there are so many decisions that people don't know that we have to make. So the third quarter, we match them basket for basket, and it's about an 18-point game. And at the start of the fourth, we did not score. We had way more trouble scoring. I think we only scored 7 points in the entire fourth quarter. But when it got to a point where there was about 6 minutes left in the game and we're down 20-25, Coach Holt and I had to make a difficult decision. Do we keep trying to win this one, or do we say, okay, this one's probably out of our control, we don't need to get somebody hurt? And we did for a while, and then at some point we said, okay, we don't need to get somebody hurt. And the other thing is, those freshmen who don't get a lot of playing time, they needed some minutes. They need some game experience and some minutes. And unfortunately, they don't always get that, especially when it's a 1 or 2 point game, because we have kids like Sierra Myers and Ashanti Fleming and Jamia Smith who are seasoned veterans, and we believe in them and we trust them. And those freshmen just haven't gotten those minutes for us to believe in them and trust them. So despite the loss, it was good experience for some of those freshmen, and they all finished the game for us and did not play bad.
Right.
You know, I saw some bright spots from them. So that, for Coach Holt and I, that was encouraging, because now we know, okay, we can put Tia Richardson in this situation. So despite the loss, there were a lot of good things about this game.
I think something that fans should pull away from it is you have to understand, like, the conference opener is a big deal, but you've still got 13 more after that
right,
one.
right.
So, you want to win the first one, but if you win the first one and you lose your star player,
Correct.
There goes the rest of your season. So, sometimes, you look at it and you go, we lost by 29 and we were down by 25. And you call it a tough decision, but you also have to look forward and go, we've got to do long range planning at this point and go, this one is important, but we still have 13 more that are just as important as this one. You look at the stat line, trail 22-12 after the first, 38-21 at halftime. That was a 16-9 outscore quarter for the Lady Bulldogs. Again, you talked about the third quarter. The third quarter really felt like if the game had been like that the whole time, the Lady Bulldogs are a lot more nervous than what they were, because you go shot with them. 25-23 was the scoring differential there in favor of the Lady Bulldogs, but it's 63-44 after the third, and then 17-7 fourth quarter gives you the 80-51 final there. Again, another big game for Sierra Myers, another game where she led the team in scoring. She had 14 points, 4 rebounds, and you also had 11 points and 5 rebounds from Cookie. Those were kind of your top 2 players, and it really feels like those two are really kind of two of the big ones that are going to make the engine run for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, those are 2 players that we need to be good for us. We need Sierra Myers to average a double-double every night. And again, she coming back from the break, she's come back with more confidence. Her injury is not bothering her, and so she has played really well. Cookie, again, she's just getting adjusted, but she's averaging these numbers when she's just getting adjusted to college basketball and stuff. So now we're 5 or 6 games in, and she's way more comfortable. So her ceiling is so high. She's got so much potential and stuff. A kid that we probably don't talk enough about, Ashanti Fleming, I'm waiting on her. She has the 31-point game against South Arkansas here, the first home opener, and she's kind of been quiet since then. She's got the ability to do that every game, so I think she's going to step up big for us. Mila Harbor, again, she's a kid who can score, who can rebound, so we've got all these pieces that can do a lot. Sequoia Bolden, a kid we never talk about because she doesn't score very much. In this game, she played extremely well. We asked her to come in and guard, and she played extremely well in this game and in the Hines game. She gave us some really good minutes. So again, sometimes players that help us win don't always get credit because it doesn't show up on the stat sheet. We wouldn't be successful without that kid. So it's good for her to get those minutes. It's good for our team to get those minutes and get that experience, because she's going to be integral for us to win against Northwest or East Mississippi or Holmes or Hines or whoever we play next.
And, we've got 2 coming up this week. You'll play the same 2 that the guys are playing. Again, from here on out, the schedules are going to match. Both of you will play on the same days, going back to the pre-COVID era schedule, things that a lot of fans will be very familiar
fans are
with.
gonna like that.
I think they're going to really like that. I personally am a big fan of going back to it. So you'll host Northwest, you'll host the Lady Rangers on January 22nd. Again, a team that you just played 11 days ago. And again, we talked about a team that you really feel like you kind of stole one from, but now the roles are reversed. They have to come on the road for 4 hours. You get to play at home. What are you expecting out of that bunch coming down here?
I expect it to be a difficult game for us. I expect us to kind of have a target on our back because they felt like they should have won the game. I will say they've got to get on a bus and come 4 hours, and they've been snowed in. They've had weather and they've had issues and stuff like that was beyond their control. But all those things usually, they kind of create controversy, just like they would for us if that had happened to us. So, I think it'll be a difficult game for us. I think if we play like we played up there, we play unselfishly. If we guard like we guarded at Gulf Coast, we'll be fine. I'm not worried about that. I think one thing that I'll say, our strength of schedule in the preseason, we played teams that put us in challenging situations, and did we play ranked teams? And no, we didn't, but we played teams that challenged us and made us better. And I don't know that Northwest's strength of schedule was quite what ours was preseason. And I think they're having to figure out how to finish games and things like that, because if you go back and look at their schedule, they were winning games by 20 and 30 and 40 points. Well, we didn't have very many of those. Most of our games were 10 to 20-point games. We had a couple where we got way ahead, but every game we had to finish, and I think that has been invaluable for us, especially playing a team like that. And I think that was a challenge for them because they had not been in the situation that they were in. So hopefully that helps us tonight or when we play Northwest.
And then we'll go on to Thursday. You go on the road and you get to go back to a place that you are very, very familiar with, somewhere that you spent a lot of years at, but on the other side of the scores table. But so now you're on this side of it, and you're going to go face off against a team that I would imagine most of them fairly well. You coached quite a few of them. You probably recruited quite a few of them as well too. That's the Lady Bears of Southwest. What are you expecting out of Coach Harris and the Bears?
Oh, well, that'll be a difficult one for me because I am torn. I recruited all those kids at Southwest, but now I'm on the other side of the bench, which is a good thing. I'm happy to be on the other side of the bench. Brent is my friend, Coach Harris is my friend, and we talk all the time. And so I was with him for 10 years, so I'm probably more familiar with what he's going to do than anybody else. So that is it's good and bad, because even though I know everything that he's going to do, it's very hard for me to teach my team, my 12 players, this is what they're going to run, and this is what they're going to run, and this is what he's going to call in this situation. They just can't retain all that. So right. I'm going to try to keep it simple for them. I expect us to change a lot. He likes to run a lot of sets. So if we play man, he'll want to run a lot of cute sets. I don't want to play man all night. Let's jump, let's play, let's press, and let's do this, and let's change. And that's kind of been our MO all season. It hasn't been that we're just going to do that for Southwest. We've changed a lot, and we've done a lot of different things. And so that's something that I anticipate that we'll do. I've learned this in the 10 years. Southwest Co-Lin, it doesn't matter who's good or who's bad, it's going to be a good game.
The record book
and
out.
I think we're both good teams, so I think it's going to be a really good game. It'll be a packed gym. So I think that'll be an exciting night. I think my kids are amped up for it because they know the Southwest kids. All these kids know each other, and social media and phones have made the world so small. They talk all the time and stuff. So like, Coach, the Southwest kids keep saying they're going to blow us out. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not worried about Southwest right now. We got to beat Northwest first. Right. Then we'll beat Southwest. Okay, let's beat Northwest first, then we'll beat Southwest. And so I hope that's their focus and their mentality, and that has been their mentality all season. They really haven't looked ahead to any certain game. So I think they're excited about the Southwest game, though, because it is close and because they're saying, oh, we're going to beat you. And that's good, too. It's good to have a competitor's edge.
Yeah, one game at a time mentality will win you a lot of games. And it's one thing we want to talk about. I think if I'd have told you at the start of the year after your first conference game, you would be 8-5, I think you'd absolutely take it, especially knowing there's 3 games on the schedule. You circle them, that being the Hines loss last week, that being the Holmes loss in overtime, and really go all the way back to the Eunice game where you admittedly didn't play your best game. You look at those 3 and go, if we had those over to play again, I think we win them. And you're sitting here and you're at what, that'd make you 11-2 instead of 8-5. But I think thoughts on being 8-5 at this point in the season, knowing that you've got 13 games left and still a lot of basketball to play, but a very good record.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy with 8-5. I would be happier with 11-2. The Holmes game, again, one I'd like to get back. The Hines game, really like to get back. Those are 2 that we should have won. However, let's flip that. We have to play both of those in conference, and those are the ones that matter. The ones that the preseason games, I want to win as many as I can, but those don't matter like the conference games matter. And I think that Hines and Holmes will have a confidence about them. Oh, we've already beat Co-Lin one time, and sometimes people take you too lightly, and so I think that should play in our favor. Hines has got to come here. Anybody that's got to come here, that makes it more difficult. We'll have to go to homes, but we're road tested. If you look at our schedule, we've only played like 3 home games. So we are road tested and we're road warriors, and I think that's good too. You know, I think our schedule set us up to be successful if we just keep learning and embracing that. So yes, I would be much happier with 11-2. I'll take 8-5. You know, Eunice, that game, I'd like to play them again too, because we just came out completely flat and played very poorly against them. But 8-5 it's a good start, and the real season starts now. You know, conference starts, and that's what I told them at Northwest. I said, okay, y'all. I said, the season has been tough, but it's fixing to get a whole lot tougher. You know, and the Gulf Coast game, they are a good team. They're a really good team. You know, and there are going to be some other teams where we go in and Pearl River. I mean, I look at their roster. I'm like, they're a really good team. That doesn't mean we can't beat them. It means we have to play as well as we can play. But there are a lot of us in the league this year, I think, who are very evenly matched, and that's why I think finishing is going to be so important for us, because we're going to be in a lot of tight games, and we've got to be able to finish here at home and on the road. And finishing, not fouling in silly situations, not letting our emotions get the best of us, not turning it over, you know, not even necessarily scoring baskets, just those little details that we can control to finish the game. And we're way better than what we were at the start of the season, but we've still got some work to do on that.
So lots of good things so far at the basically first half of the year for the Lady Wolves. Again, they've got 2 big ones coming up. The next 2 in conference play, home against the Lady Rangers on January 22nd and on the road against the Lady Bears over in Summit on January 25th. Catch both of those. If you can't make it for both of them, we'll have the home game for you on our stream on CoLinAthletics.com, and I assume they'll have the stream on Bear TV for the Southwest game as well too, but we'd love to have you in person for both of those as well. I'm Kevin Kaiser, Sports Information Coordinator here at Co-Lin. Again, thanks to Coach Stephens and Coach Sanders for joining me today. Tune in next week. We'll talk about more basketball action, and then we'll look ahead to spring sports. Thanks for tuning in to the Co-Lin Coaches Show.